Hey, it's official. You're awesome. And I want to remind you just how awesome you are. You have this part of you that is your core consciousness. And it is that part of you that is your wise self, that is connected to all that is. If you want to hear more, that's what this episode is all about. I'm Constance Messmer, and I am so glad you are joining me today.
Hello, and welcome to the Constance Messmer Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Constance Messmer Podcast. If you're new here, welcome. Good place to jump in, but I have a whole boatload of episodes in my playlist. You might want to go through and see what resonates. The lessons are sequential so that you can learn to be your best possible self. If you are familiar with my content and have been following and subscribing and even becoming a member all along, thank you so much and welcome back. You will find in my work that I will use some words and phrases interchangeably. Your wise self is also your core consciousness. It is your higher consciousness. It is what you were born with. And at various times in your life, you have opportunity to bring more of it into your physical body and embody that greater, expansive part of you. So some of the terms that I might use interchangeably might be your higher self or your wise self. That's me personally. Other people might use those terms differently, but that's how I use those terms. Also, I want to remind you that this presence of your wise self can be very different from the part of you that is involved ego consciousness in your day-to-day choices. And so I always remind you to tune in to that greater expanded awareness part of you, that part of you that's connected to all that is. Because sometimes we neglect or forget that we do have all the answers inside of us or a way to source the answers, right? I think that we all generally know what's for our highest good in each moment, but sometimes we don't listen, and sometimes we don't think we necessarily know what's good for us, or we might actually get bamboozled by the outside world or influences of other people. And I'm just here to remind you that you're awesome and you've got this incredible part of you that you can always turn to, right? Always turn to. If you're familiar with my work, I remind you that the key components are knowing yourself, right? So that you can tell when you've got some kind of ego involvement weighing in when you're ascertaining the truth of your heart and soul. But predominantly, it's really understanding the language of your soul so that you can access this wise self-awareness and communication efforts. And the language of the soul are the 11 soul senses that I teach. It's these ways that not only our soul works to guide us, but how we can interact with our world on a deeper level. We're body and soul, and if you only live through your physical senses, you're missing half your life. My work is to empower you to live through the senses of your soul as well, to continually and constantly turn to these awarenesses for not only a better life for yourself, but a better world for all of us. I think it's with the senses of our soul that we're better able to tap into our gifts and our potential professionally and personally. And it's a beautiful way to connect with the world and others around you on this deeper level so that you might understand and have a bigger picture or a broader perspective or an expanded awareness as to your relationship with them in the moment and also over time. So these are the skills that you carry with you innately. And I'm just here to remind you that it's official. You're awesome. You are awesome. And you have these maybe sometimes buried talents that you're not really tapping into. And I want to remind you that you can. It is with our wise self that we're able to navigate all the other relationships, whether you're psychically or soulfully trying to get in touch with a loved one on the other side, or a guide or an angel or the divine. Your wise self, your higher consciousness, is that part of you that connects to these realms and spaces, right? Even if you're just soulfully connecting to a living being or an animal or a plant or a person, right? Or a greater concept, right? So it is your wise self, this core consciousness, this part of you that you were born with, that sometimes gets pushed away by what you think you should and shouldn't do, or what society says who you are. It's this core consciousness that you are, that part of you is the part of you that taps into and can navigate all these realms and liminal spaces. I think the most important thing is knowing the language of your soul, knowing the language of your higher consciousness. And those are your 11 soul senses. That's why I tell you and teach, when you engage in use of your 11 soul senses, you are in the space of higher conscious awareness. So when you're in these spaces of awareness to higher consciousness, these moments can happen to you, or you can tune into them. And by that, I mean our intuition speaks to us all the time, right? We are tuned in on this greater level to the world around us. Our soul is constantly interacting energetically, emotionally, physically, spiritually, conversationally. And so these come up, bubble up, and hit us as intuitive moments that we might, if we're not versed or cognizant of it, we might push away, or we might discredit, or we might just skip right over, right? And so sometimes it takes this effort of rebuilding this very personal rapport with that part of yourself, this personal relationship with yourself, and this wise, soul senseful part of you. And there's several ways that you can do that. Like if the experience occurs to you and you get an intuitive hunch or hit, or a visionary experience that comes to you, or a knowing, claircognizance that comes to you, take a moment, right? When it's happening to you and your intuition is trying to talk to you, and it's really from your soul, not from a guide or an angel, but from your soul to yourself, like, ooh, pay attention here. Because you've traversed these spaces, not just in this lifetime, in my experience and my recognition from working at this material for 3 decades and working with other people, right? And their journeys. I believe we have had multiple lifetimes, and not necessarily just here on this planet, and not necessarily just here in human form. But when we have these moments where our soul is trying to reconcile an experience with us now, and it speaks to us through our intuition, I invite you to take a moment when you're having an inner voice or a visionary experience or something that says stop, or you get goosebumps when you walk into a room, or you get a vibe off a person that you're like, I don't think I want to really go any further in the relationship with them, or I think they're full of crap and I shouldn't believe them. All of these things, right? These are intuitive, interactive moments. In those times, I encourage you to take a moment, stop and recognize it's happening. And then the language, the 11 soul senses, how's it happening to you? And what are you supposed to do that's best for you in this moment, right? What are you supposed to do that's best for you? That's very key, because it's your life, right? And so you don't want to dishonor and discredit that core self that knows, that is connected to truth, right? And so I think one of the greatest gifts you could give yourself is being present in the moment that an intuitive experience happens, but also allowing it to expand so that you are recognizing the full depth of the experience and the benefits that it's trying to alert you to, or bring you to, or bring your awareness to through your 11 soul senses. This is really important when random things kind of happen out of nowhere. They're these otherwise displaced moments where you could skip right over it, but it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Build relationship with this part, your soul senses, build relationship. So know the language, recognize when an intuitive moment happens, and then navigate that with clarity and trust. What should I do? What did I just feel? What did I just see? What did I just hear? What do I know? Something just happened here on a soul level. What am I supposed to do next? I think that's really, really important. And sometimes these are, random moments of connection that happen through your day-to-day life. But another way that you can enhance this relationship with your wise self is to really spend time. You could spend time conversing with or interacting with this part of you. This is why through all of my long form content in my episodes, there's these exercises for each of the 11 soul senses. Not only do I talk about the 11 soul senses, but then I offer you exercises to establish relationship and strengthen them. And this is a personal practice that you could put into your life at any point, right? Where you decide like, all right, I want to build relationship with the way my wise self navigates the world, the way my wise self understands the greater picture happening in this moment. And a way that you could do that is to turn to it, right? Not just when it tries to knock you over the head through intuitive blasts and moments, but you turn to it. I do this all the time, right? Whether I'm troubleshooting work problems or approaches or strategies, or if they're personal problems, there's a couple of my favorite ways. Well, actually, there's probably three favorite ways to do that. One is to go on what I call a walk and talk. And this is where I take the problem or the situation and I decide to go for a walk because it's been pestering me or I can't shake it or I can't solve the problem. And, I don't want to go to a therapist maybe, or I don't want to go to a friend, or I don't want to go to a business partner or family member or whatever. I just want to work on it on a personal level. In those moments, sometimes I don't even want to take it to guides, angels, or God. I just want to go, Constance, look at yourself and what do you need to do here in this moment? What's coming up for you? And so I go on what I call a walk and talk, and where I really focus on like, all right, how do I feel about my experience with what such and such or whatever? And what's the deeper messages? But then I let my soul be a part of the communication efforts, the conversation, the troubleshooting. I might have memories come to mind. I might have soul level impressions or knowings or feelings or senses or emotions, because I set the intention when I start on the walk and talk with, I really want to hear from my soul, like on a core level, beyond all the ego stuff. I just want to know, as part of my soul's trajectory and soul's journey, what is this situation and this problem really about? Now, I know the surface level stuff and in this life stuff, but is there anything deeper going on, like the overall arc of my life? What is this lesson about? Is this a lesson? Is this just a time for me to put up boundaries or set limits or recognize, how I'm supposed to help or what I'm supposed to do or how I'm supposed to change, right? Listen, can I tell you, I'm a detached Aquarian. So this can't be a free pass to not be emotionally connected to people, but sometimes I can be like, I don't understand you at all. So I'm just going to be like more detached. But I have to actually remind myself, be kind, be compassionate. You wouldn't think. I'm teaching you. You're like, oh, that can't be, Constance. That can't be. Yes, it can be. Because I'm very pragmatic. Is that the right word? And I'm very like, wait, you can't see this? How come you can't see this? And it's just, plus I'm Capricorn rising. And so I'm very grounded. And so I really look at the practical aspect of things, Virgo moon, stuff like that. And I'm just like, wait a minute, what's, wait, they need a hug. Give him a hug. You'd think I would be able to know that and do that, but it's not my nature. So I'm trying to learn these things, right? And so sometimes on my walk and talks, when I bring a problem to my higher self, my wise self, I realize that it's a moment of asking for change of me. And I have to cast my ego aside enough that I can handle this, revelation, right? Personal revelation. So that's one of the favorite ways. I'm a mover. I like to move. I sit a lot. Like you see this right here now? I sit a lot. I sit for you. I do it for you. Now, could I take you on a walk with me through the woods? Absolutely. Am I going to do that right now? No, because then I'd have to learn about the mic setup and have to have the stick with the camera on it and all this stuff. And I don't have a film crew. So, eventually we'll go for walks together. I promise you. But otherwise, I sit on my arse a lot. So when I converse with my higher self or try to strategize even business problems within the context of my wise self, not my reality, it's wise self, then I walk and talk. And then I might make voice notes in my phone or whatever, or on a little scrap of paper. That's one of my favorite ways, is moving. Or, you know me, if you've been listening for a while, you know me, I also like to do coffee time in the morning with my journal, or, a notebook, or a blank notebook like I sell in my shop. And it could be I could have one each for each situation, right? Work strategies that, I bring to my higher consciousness, or personal life stuff, life lessons, various categories. I like to sit with my favorite drink is coffee. And thank you for Coffee for Constance members. I appreciate you because I do use that. So I like to sit with my coffee and troubleshoot things from my wise self and my regular Constance girl in written dialogue back and forth. And how I do that is I put a problem on the top of the paper, and then I say, I put me for me, right? And I might do WS for wise self, or HC for higher consciousness. To me, it's the same. And so I tune in with the intention, much like the walk. I'm going to pose a question, and then I'm going to put my hands on my heart, close my eyes, and ask my wise self to contribute. Like, what's the deeper story? What do I need to know? What am I missing? What's the better approach? All of these things. And I write the dialogue. I journal the dialogue back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. This is helpful in a couple of ways because it helps me recognize the voice differentiation, right? Now, I've been at this for a long time, and those of you that do this as well can recognize there's this experience where you can start to understand the stream of consciousness switch from wise self to personal self, ego conscious self. And that's cool. It's also nice to have the reference to go back to those spaces. And when I get in the flow of the writing, sometimes the wise self really takes over, and I just start like writing. And it's, this whole other level of experience that comes through that there's no way that I would be able to remember, much like when I'm doing the same when I'm writing from either my guides or angelic realm. Like, this stuff comes fast, right? And I just can't even keep up sometimes with the cleverness of it all. When people ask me how to get so skilled at my work, I give them 3 tips. The first one is to know the definition of your actual soul senses so that you can use them. 2, to take the time to use them daily. And 3, to actually journal your experiences so you can become familiar with your strengths and what's happening in each moment. To help you do that, I've created a lot of blank journals that you can turn to document your feelings, findings, and discoveries. Visit my shop to explore what I offer in my merchandise, or go to constancemessmer.com. And thanks for tuning in. But what's beautiful for me, and this is where I want you to recognize your awesomeness, is that you might find the same with your wise self. You might be like, wow, oh, I'm getting chills. Wow, I'm writing and tears are coming to my eyes. This is you talking. Tears are coming to your eyes because you cannot believe how profound the wisdom is that comes through. And I want to remind you, in those moments, if your intention has been to connect with your wise self and you're doubting that, close your eyes, put your hands on your heart in those moments and say, who's talking? Is this me? And if you get a yes, trust that, because your intention is to go in to talk to your wise self. But I want to remind you that wise self part of you is not just made up from this incarnation. You are soul eternal, and you have ways of getting information and have had far more experiences than only your life here now. Don't sell yourself short. Do not sell yourself short. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Or you're going to answer to me. Aren't I a bossy cow? So funny. So I just want you to take a moment in those times where the wisdom coming through is profound. You can dive into that. Like, how do I know this? How do I know this? You can actually question the content, right? How do I know this? How is this? you could even say, is this from a lifetime where I studied this particular problem or was versed at looking at this kind of issue before? Like, how many lifetimes have I struggled with this issue? These kind of things. Listen, I'm going to make some future episodes on past lives that will dive deeper into that. But I'm just telling you that there might be some really interesting content that comes up when you start having a good chatter with your wise self. That's an important part of self-discovery, right? Is remember, I always say open heart, open mind, so that you recognize it's unlimited potential. This is unlimited potential. I think astrologers, my favorite astrology perspective of blank houses in the 12 houses, are there 12? The 12 houses, and also on my angel cards where there's a blank. Friends and I say, oh, that's unlimited potential. You just don't know where it's going to take you. So I just want you to remember that when you're exploring a relationship with your wise self. It's your most important, profound self. It's your most important um, self-discovery, I think, that you'll make is recognizing this part of you, because you're going to use it to navigate your world in the arena of the soul senses, in the future material that we're going to work on together, connecting with loved ones that have crossed, guides, connecting with angels, connecting with your environment, tuning into the chakra system, all of these things that I've been teaching, and also manifesting, right? This is how we get information in our co-creation process. All of these things are wise self, being aware, tuned in, turned on, ready to go. Here we go. It's being present and mindful that there's this whole other layer of consciousness or a level of consciousness trying to be unearthed in your life, especially now with all this awakening across the planet. We need you. We need your awesomeness. Who knows what you're doing and what you're going to do as you really retain the greater skill sets that you carry. I think it's just super duper important. I can't help myself. So, what's one way that you can kind of practice and work with this wisdom that you carry, the wise self, is that when you tune in to get intuitive guidance from your wise self, or, these moments of when you're troubleshooting your problems and you get some answers or guidance or steps to take. Yeah. Or when you have an intuitive moment where you're like, ooh, don't go in there, or don't engage in conversation, or like for me today, what was it? It was like, do this. I thought of, I often take my list of stuff and I kind of hold it in my mind, like these are the things, the goals that I want to accomplish today. And then I say, which one should float to the top? And the wise self always comes up with it. And I think sometimes I argue with my wise self and go, oh, I think it would be easier if I did it this way. And then, so some days I do it my way and other days I do it wise self way. It always works out better when I do it wise self way. I'm like, God, why don't I even listen to myself? But for me, it's not so much anymore disparaging or discrediting that part of me. For me, it becomes a case study. Like, oh, how'd that go? Do you know? And so it's fun. So I invite you to come up with decisions that need to happen by bantering it out with your wise self, right? And then put some small measures to the test. Do it in small steps to build this rapport with your wise self, to build relationship, right? Rapport is friendly, harmonious relationship. And I think that I'm serious about the friendly part, because I think sometimes we've carry this amazing gift inside us that is connected to all that is, that we can use to converse with these realms. And sometimes we let ourselves down and we don't believe it or don't listen. And so sometimes we don't think we're capable, or we couldn't possibly, have all the answers inside of us, or we need to go outside ourselves to troubleshoot, or we need to have an expert or whatever. No, you're the expert. You're Don't look for the sign, you're the oracle. Hello. Yeah. So let me think a minute. Is there anything else I want to tell you? I don't think there's anything else. I think that's good. So, see how it goes. Trust yourself, man. And yeah, and you can always put your hands on your heart and say, "Is this for my highest good?" And all the soul senses are going to ring, like warmth, clairsensation, claircognizance, and knowing. Yes, this is for your highest good. A voice, clairaudience, clairsentiment. It could just be this feeling of joy or peace, right? Any of these signs from your soul to yourself will help you recognize that the voice of truth is solid in you. And your wise self will never bring harm to yourself or others. You're golden. You're golden. So just remember, it's official. You're awesome. You're awesome. And you have this core consciousness, this part of you that is always, always there. Might as well tap into it. Thanks for tuning in.